The island of Black Veil, the sea, was calm that morning, too calm. Not a single gull in the sky, not a whisper of wind. Just the endless blue, stretching to the edges of the world. Captain Aldric Vane stood at the bow of the Widow's Wager, staring at Black Veil Island. "There it is," he muttered, voice dry as rum-soaked parchment. "The place where men become myths." No one on his crew spoke. Tay knew the stories. The island was said to be cursed. A place where compasses spun wild, where ghosts sang to sailors, and time bent like wet rope. Some called it a graveyard of greed. Others whispered that no man who buried gold there ever returned unchanged. Aldric Vane wasn't just any man. He was the last living heir of dread Captain Marlowe's treasure. It was said could buy a kingdom or doom one. And Vane wasn't just hiding it. He was about to disappear it forever. Landfall, the jungle pressed against the beach like a living thing. Trees twisted in impossible directions. Vines slithered in and out of shadow. The air itself smelled thick, like secrets. Vane led a small team inland. First mate, Calder. Navigator, Jin. Old one-eyed Boro. And silent, sharp-eyed Thatch. Each man had sailed with him for years. Each owed him their lives. And yet, Vane knew if they saw what he was about to hide, they'd kill him for it. The chest they carried was not ordinary, forged in iron. Locked with coral-grown glyphs, it pulsed faintly in the dark. Inside was not just gold, but a compass that pointed to nowhere, a blade that hummed near water, and a map drawn in blood that never faded. "This ain't just plunder," Boro muttered. "This is wrong." Vane said nothing. He had stolen it, not from a man, but from a creature that had once been a god, sleeping beneath the southern reef. And though it had cost him most of his sanity, it had also granted him a vision. Bury it where no tide remembers. Mark it not with a map, but with blood, and never come back. The bearing, they found a clearing deep in the heart of the island, where the trees grew in a perfect circle, and no birds dared nest. The ground was soft, but smelled of salt. They dug in silence. Jin wept without knowing why. Calder flinched at every wind shift. Even Thatch, who had once slit a man's throat with a spoon, began to shiver as the chest dropped into the hole. The earth itself groaned, and the shadows deepened. "Cover it," Vane snapped. Fast. As they shoveled dirt back into the pit, the light dimmed. The jungle seemed to lean in. A sound like distant thunder rumbled beneath their feet. Something had noticed. The turning that night, they camped by the cove, fire flickering low. No one touched the rum. No one laughed. Vane didn't sleep. He waited. Just before dawn, he heard footsteps. Calder, Jin, and Boro stood above him, weapons drawn. "You're going to forget where it is?" Calder said. "But we won't." Vane smiled sadly. "No, you won't remember it either." He reached into his coat and withdrew a black vial, the last gift from the sleeping god. One sip, and memories of the island would slip from the mind like smoke. "Drink or die," he said. Boro lunged. Thatch, who had never once spoken a full sentence, drew and fired. Boro fell. Jin screamed. Calder cursed. Vane forced them to drink, all except Thatch. Thatch didn't move. "You remember?" Vane asked. Thatch finally spoke, voice hoarse like torn canvas. "I never knew." The departure. They left the island at sunrise. No one spoke of what they'd done. Not because they refused, but because they couldn't. Every time Jin tried to sketch the island's shape, his hand cramped. Calder once said veil, and immediately forgot what he meant. Boro, after waking from a fever dream, asked who Marlowe was. Even Vane's own journal began to fade. He opened it days later to find blank pages. Only one line remained. "What is buried is not always gone. Years later, tales of Aldric Vane faded into sailor songs and barroom lies. Some said he was dead. Others swore he'd found godhood, but none knew the truth, that he still sailed alone, now searching for the island he'd hidden too well. Sometimes he saw glimpses, curve a beach, a tree that bent wrong, a song in the waves. But the wind always shifted. The stars always blinked, and he always forgot, because the island didn't just hide the treasure, it hid itself. Somewhere, Black Veil waits, untouched, unspoken, half-remembered in nightmares, and beneath its soil, the chest still breathes, waiting, *. The years had not been kind to Aldric Vane. His hair, once black as squid ink, had turned a stormy gray. His eyes, dulled by time and salt, remained fixated on a memory he could no longer name. Yet something in him refused to let go, a phantom itch in the back of his mind, a pressure behind the eyes whenever fog rolled in or the sea went quiet. He drank less now, not from clarity, but out of fear. Fear that if he drowned the noise, he'd never hear it again, that buried melody, that ghost of a compass needle twitching just out of view. And then, in a nameless tavern on the edge of nowhere, he heard a tune. A child, dirty and barefoot, sat by the hearth, humming a melody no child should know. A tune the sea had once breathed through the mangroves of an island that didn't exist on any map. Vane froze. His mug slipped from his hand. The boy looked up, blinking. "I don't know where I heard it," he said, almost apologetically. "It's just always been in my head." Kay left that night. He bought a ship with what little he had, small, fast, and quiet. He hired no crew, save for a mute harpooner, a half-blind cook, and an old woman who claimed to have spoken once with the storm. They asked no questions. That was the rule. Vane said only this: "We sail where the wind is wrong." 13. Nights the sea was ordinary, and then it wasn't. The fog arrived just before dawn, rolling in so thick it swallowed the world. The wind died. The waves ceased, and then, through the gray veil, a shape emerged. There it was, as if it had never moved, as if it had never left its Black Veil Island. He stepped onto the shore alone. The others would not follow. They claimed their limbs ached the moment the anchor dropped. The harpooner bled from the nose. The cook vomited up seawater, though she'd eaten nothing. The old woman cried and whispered a name Vane had never spoken aloud. The trees remembered him. He walked past he did not recognize, but his feet knew. The jungle bent away from him. The ground pulsed faintly beneath his boots. There were no birds, no insects. But the air was not silent. It was filled with something else, a pressure, a hum, a held breath. He reached the clearing, the same perfect circle, the same absence of shadow. And there, at the center, the earth had sunk. Not dug, sunk, as though whatever was buried had pulled the world inward, slowly feeding on time itself. He knelt and pressed his palm to the dirt. "I came back," he said. "You kept your promise. I forgot. But I came back." A voice behind him answered, soft as moss. "You never truly left." He turned. Thatch, not aged, not changed. He looked exactly as he had on the day they buried the chest. His eyes, however, were different. They were not eyes of a man anymore. "I drank," Vane whispered. "You didn't." "I didn't need to," Thatch replied. "The island chose me." Vane felt the air press tighter. "The chest, is it still?" "It's not a chest anymore," Thatch said gently. "It was never just treasure. You thought you were burying power, but you were planting it." The ground beneath them cracked faintly. Soft moan, not sound, but feeling, rippled through the trees. "It grew, it dreamed," Thatch corrected. "It learned your name, learned our names, and now it dreams of waking." Vane staggered back. We need to destroy it. You can't destroy what's become part of the earth, Thatch said. But you can join it, or feed it, or run. The clearing pulsed again. Vane felt it now. The pull. Not gravity, but belonging. Terrible comfort. It's like going home after too long, only to realize home doesn't remember you. I buried it, so no one would find it. And yet, here you are. I had no map, no trail. But you left your name, Thatch said with something like a smile. In blood, the island doesn't forget names. Behind them, the jungle shifted. Trees leaned inward. The sky dimmed, though the sun had not set. The center of the clearing bulged upward, like something breathing beneath the earth. I don't want this, Vane said. You never did, Thatch agreed. But I came back. And now you can choose. Vane looked down at the soil, then at the man or thing that had once been Thatch. He could feel it now, all of it, the sea, the sky, the hum of the roots and bones and secrets and dreams. The treasure he had buried was no longer treasure. It was a pulse, a hunger, a name passed from soil to storm. He drew his blade and drove it into the ground. The earth shuddered, the fog screamed, and the island sighed. Then silence, when the crew found him later. He stood at the water's edge, eyes glassy, his boots muddy. He said nothing as they set sail. He never returned. He spoke little after that, never sailed again. His maps stayed locked away, and his name became just another tale told in salt-stained bars. But sailors say that sometimes, when fog rolls in too thick and the sea grows too quiet, a man in a tattered coat appears on the beach. He never speaks, just stares, as if waiting for someone to remember something they never should have known. And deep in the ocean, on no map, beneath the mist and mangroves of an island that shifts like a thought, something waits beneath the soil, dreaming still. Months passed, or perhaps it was years. Time had loosened its grip on Aldric Vane, just as the island had loosened its grip on his memory, but never fully. Not anymore. He no longer sailed. His ship rotted quietly in a forgotten harbor. He didn't drink, didn't fight, didn't tell tales. He became something between myth and man, a figure seen at the edge of stormy docks, eyes glassy as the tide. But every night, when sleep took him, the island came back. He walked the jungle again, barefoot this time. The earth moved subtly beneath him as though exhaling with his steps. The trees leaned in unnatural directions, guiding him, watching him. In the sky, the stars shifted wrong. The moon changed shape, sometimes sharp like a tooth, other times weeping like an eye. And always, always, he heard it. Not Thatch, not the wind, the island itself, a voice without sound, deep and endless. It spoke in feeling, not words, in memories he hadn't lived, in futures he dared not want. It pulled at something within him, not his soul, but something older, buried deeper than even blood. He would wake, gasping. His hands were always dirty. Some mornings, sand clung to his boots. Once, he woke with a black fern leaf tucked in. His coat, a kind that only grew on black. He never asked how it got there. He knew the island was calling him. Back, not to return, but to stay. The day finally came. A stranger arrived at the harbor, young, wide-eyed, skin sunburned. He asked for Aldric Vane by name. Vane watched him from the shadows of the tavern. He had no beard, no weapon, just a book, old, water-stained, bound in whaleskin. The boy saw him, walked over. Is it real? The boy asked. The island, Vane, said nothing. The map led me to you, the boy continued. I think it was yours. He opened the book, and Vane's breath caught. It was his handwriting, faded but unmistakable. Lines he did not remember writing. A drawing of the clearing, the circle of trees, the humming stone, a single line beneath it. What I buried is growing. It remembers my name. Vane reached out, ran his finger over the ink. It was warm. Where did you get this? He asked. In the belly of a fish, the boy said. They left together that night. Vane gave no orders. The boy had already charted a course, one that made no sense on compass or star map, but felt correct. The sea was calm. The clouds moved in spirals. Gulls followed for a while, then turned back, and then, like a dream, Black Veil rose from the mist, different now, taller, wider, the trees thicker, the beach darker. It had grown. The boy smiled. It waited. Vane did not answer. He only stepped onto the shore. The island welcomed him. The jungle parted. The ground pulsed gently, like a heart at rest. They walked in silence to the clearing. Vane had not seen it in years, yet he could feel every step before it came. And when they reached it, he knew at once the chest was gone. There was no pit, no soil, only a single tree, twisted, black, and humming faintly with breath. At its roots lay a sword, his old sword, now rusted and half swallowed by roots, and carved into the bark, deep and fresh. Welcome back. The boy knelt beside the tree. Do you remember now? Vane swallowed. I never forgot. A wind passed through the clearing, not from above, but from below. The boy stood, eyes shining silver now. Not human, not anymore. You planted it, he said. You gave it your name. Now it gives you its gift. Vane felt the ground beneath him go soft, not like sinking, like being accepted. The roots curled around his boots. He did not struggle. He dropped to his knees, and as the island slowly pulled him under, soil closing gently over his shoulders, his chest, his mouth, he smiled, not because he wanted to die, but because he was finally home, somewhere, as far beyond the reach of stars and sails. Black Veil grows still, an island that breathes in silence and remembers every name ever buried. Within it, it waits, it whispers, and it never forgets. Asterisk, they say, the sea forgets, that its waves wash away everything blood. Bones, stories, that salt and time dissolve even the sharpest names, until all that's left is driftwood and silence. But the sea does not forget Black Veil, because Black Veil is not part of the sea. It is something else, a root beneath the world, a mouth with no tongue, whispering in dreams, a memory that buries you. Years passed, though no one could say how many. Sailors spoke in fearful tones of strange tides that pulled ships off course, of birds that circled places no map acknowledged, of an island that did not stay still but moved when no one watched. Like something alive, they told of a captain, once great, whose shadow could still be seen at dawn on certain shores, staring toward a fog bank that never lifted. And they told of a boy with silver eyes who came to coastal towns asking not for food or gold, but for names. Have you buried anything? He would ask. A lie? A secret? A promise? If you said yes, he would thank you and leave. If you said no, would smile and disappear. No one followed him twice. In a harbor far south, an old woman found a bottle washed ashore. Inside was no map, only a torn page from a journal, ink faded, words trembling with memory. It read, I didn't bury treasure. I buried myself, and it grew. When you find it, don't dig. Listen. If it speaks your name, run. No signature, just a symbol carved at the bottom. A tree, twisted, rooted in a skull. Some say the island is still growing. Some say it now floats. An island without a fixed sea, but the wisest sailors, the ones who speak little and stare long at moonless water, say this: it's not where the island is, it's where it wants to be. I And if you wake one night with sand in your bed and your name carved into your palm, you were already there. Now it remembers you. Now it waits down. Now it's your turn to vanish. Asterisk. The year was 1893 when they found the map. It was stitched inside the lining of a dead man's coat, an explorer who washed ashore in Gibraltar. RIBs cracked inward like something had tried to pull him from the inside. Out, the paper was soaked but legible. A coastline unlike any known shape. A phrase beneath it, written in strange ink. No tide remembers it, but the earth does. The man who read it was named Elias Crow, an academic by appearance, but a grave robber in truth. Elias had made a career out of digging where others feared to tread: Mayan tombs, drowned cathedrals, the crypts beneath salt deserts. He believed in cursed things, but only as a method of deterrent. What he didn't believe in were islands that moved, or names that remembered you. Until now, the coordinates on the map pointed to nowhere. The sea in that region was labeled in merchant charts as unchartable, a blank spot avoided even by whalers. But something in the paper called to him, not greed, not fame, something deeper, the promise of knowing. He hired a crew from ports no one visited twice, quiet men, cheap, disposable. They sailed in silence. For 6 weeks they drifted without sign, no land, no birds, no wind, till the fog came, and in it, the island, it rose like a wound on the horizon. Trees taller than masts, shorelines shaped like hooked fingers, no sound, not even waves. Its breath, slow and heavy, like the island itself was dreaming. They rowed ashore. Elias felt it immediately, the pressure in the chest, the heat behind the eyes, the taste of copper in the mouth. The crew felt it too. One turned back before his boots touched sand. Another walked straight into the sea, eyes wide, saying only, "It already knows me." Okay. The rest followed Elias into the trees, and the island welcomed them. They found the clearing at dusk, a perfect circle of silence. In the middle stood a tree, black as coal, with bark that shimmered wet, even in dry air. Elias stepped forward, horn trembling. He did not see a tree. He saw a door. Something beneath the soil pulsed with heat. Hunger. He began to dig. The others watched, wordless, as he tore into the roots, tore into the memory, tore into the skin of something far older than the earth. He found the hilt first, a rusted blade, carried in twisted roots, still warm, then a second, then bones, not human, not beast, a skeleton shaped like nothing they had seen, long and folded wrong. Ribcage spiraled like a conch shell, jaw made of teeth stacked sideways. Elias kept digging, and then he struck metal. The chest, iron, hatched with a language that writhed when you stared too long. Locked, but alive. It breathed beneath his hands. He turned to the crew. "We found it," he said. No one responded. They were staring past him. He followed their gaze. The tree was bleeding. Thick black sap oozed from the trunk. The leaves shook, though there was no wind. The air changed. No longer just heavy, now charged, like the moment before lightning. Something under the ground shifted, and then a voice, not a sound, a feeling. "Why did you wake me?" The island screamed. The clearing cracked open, and Elias Crow fell into the mouth of the earth. The crew fled, or tried to. Roots rose from the soil like tentacles, not grabbing, remembering. Each man was taken in a different way. One simply vanished. Another aged into dust between blinks. A teen, one turned into salt. The last just looked up and whispered, "I understand," before falling to his knees and weeping into the leaves. When it ended, the clearing was whole again. The chest was gone. That tree stood taller. A new set of roots twisted into the shape of a spine, somewhere deep beneath the island. Elias still digs, not with tools, but with memory. He no longer remembers his name, but the island does. It always does. So if you find a map without a coast, if the sea turns still, the fog speaks to you like a mother. Don't dig, don't ask, don't remember, because once you do, T Island will too. They called it Zone No, a blank square on digital maps. A patch of ocean in the South Atlantic where GPS froze, compasses spun, and machines refused to work. It wasn't listed on any official maritime chart. No shipping lanes crossed it. Even seabirds flew around it. The tech crews at Nereus Corporation didn't believe in superstition. They believed in anomalies. And anomalies meant funding. So they sent Expedition VO4, led by Dr. Wren Holloway, marine archaeologist, linguist, and known for her disdain of myths. She wore science like armor, data like teeth. Unknown doesn't mean unknowable. She told the team. She regretted those words later. The ship, Alethea, was state-of-the-art. Submersibles, drones, AI-driven sonar mapping. Wren's team included robotics engineers, marine biologists, and one folklore specialist she had fought hard to exclude. Okay? But the board insisted. His name was Jonah Vane. Yes, that Vane. The last of the line. Or so the stories said. He didn't talk much, just stared at the ocean too long, carried an old, cracked compass around his neck that didn't point north. Family heirloom, he said. On day 4, the systems began to blink. Drones refused commands. Navigation screens showed open. See? Then pulsed white dot. And then something appeared on sonar. K-mass, rising from the deep. No thermal signature. No movement. Just presence. At first, they thought it was a reef. Then an island. Then something else entirely. Covered in forest. Circular in shape, with a black coastline like volcanic stone. Perfectly symmetrical. Symmetrical. Jonah looked ill. I know this shape, he said. Wren ignored him. She ordered a team to shore. The drone footage cut out exactly 20 feet above landfall. Every camera went black. One briefly captured an image, a tree in the center of a clearing, twisted, tall, bark pulsing like breath. Just before a signal loss, a single word flashed on the screen. Remember? Wren decided to go herself. Jonah begged her not to. He showed her a page from a journal no one had published, something he claimed he'd found hidden in the walls of a coastal ruin in Lisbon. The writing matched Aldric Vane's known handwriting. The ink had no age. It described a tree that could dream, an island that moved, box that buried memories like seeds. She called it elaborate nonsense. Still, she took him with her. The boat touched land just before dusk. No sounds, no birds. The jungle leaned toward them like it was listening. Her equipment failed the moment her boots hit the sand. Watches stopped. Radios hissed. Even her breath felt out of sync. Jonah whispered, "It knows you're here." She glared. "What is it?" He didn't answer. They walked inland. The trees twisted unnaturally. The air was heavy, but not hot. The shadows bent the wrong way. Every step brought a rising sense of pressure, like diving too deep, too fast. They reached the clearing. The tree was there exactly as described in the old journal. It didn't look alive. It looked worried and stepped forward. Her foot struck something under the leaves, with stone. She brushed it aside, etched into the stone. A name. Holloway. Her name. She froze. Jonah pulled her back. "It's already inside you," said. "How?" she whispered. He pulled the compass from his neck. This never pointed north. It pointed here. I was born with it. My family's curse. We don't seek the island. We carry it. And now, so do you. The tree trembled. Leaves rose, though there was no wind. The ground beneath them rumbled like a deep, distant breath. Then the voices came, not aloud, but in their bones, not in words, but in remembering. Wren saw her father, a man she hadn't thought of in years, kneeling by a shore with black sand. She saw a book, one she hadn't yet written, burned and buried in her own backyard. She saw herself digging, smiling, feeding the earth, and then she was back. Heart racing, vision blurred. The roots of the tree had moved, only slightly. But enough. Jonah knelt. "Don't fight it," he said. "What does it want?" she asked. "It wants to remember us." She felt it then. The hunger, not for flesh, not for souls, but for names, for memory, for meaning. The tree reached for her with its breath, and she stepped forward, not because she believed, but because part of her already belonged. The jungle whispered around them. Somewhere in the earth, beneath the clearing, beneath the chest, beneath the names. The first root cracked open. The expedition never returned. The Alethea drifted for days, found empty. No signs of violence, just silence. In the ship's log, the last sentence written in Wren's hand was, "We were never discovering it. It was uncovering us." The coordinates vanished from every system. Zone Null was gone, and somewhere, beneath fog and sea and time, the island waited, not for ships, not for men, but for the next one ready to remember their name. Asterisk, the island was no longer just a place. It had become a presence of pulse beneath the world, a memory etched into the bones of the earth. It whispered through fog and song, through dreams and the silence between heartbeats. Dr. Wren Holloway stood once more at the edge of the clearing. Her breath caught, not from fear, but from understanding. The island did not consume. It invited. It did not destroy. It preserved. It did not forget. It remembered. She held Jonah's compass in her hand, warm, alive. Her own name, carved into the bark, glowed faintly beneath the moonlight, alongside many others. Aldric, Thatch, Elias, Vane, the line of those who had come, and those who had been claimed. With a quiet smile, she knelt and pressed her palm against the tree's blackened trunk. The island's breath rose to meet hers, a slow, ancient rhythm that reached deep inside her soul. The roots curled softly, gently, not to trap but to welcome. The island was no longer a secret. It was a sanctuary for those who carried its mark, the forgotten, the lost, the remembered. The fog lifted for the first time in centuries, revealing an endless horizon where sea met sky, where past met future. And as the dawn broke, Wren whispered, "I am home." Island sighed a sound like the sea itself and waited patiently for the next name. The end.